Welcome back, everybody. Yes, the sun is out. Oh my gosh. Hey, trigger warning today. We're going to talk about a birth that went terribly wrong and the midwife was charged criminally. Stay tuned. Crafting Journey here, that Journey chick over on Instagram, and on my new YouTube channel, second YouTube channel, The Leftovers. You can check that out. The link is down in the description. How are you guys today? Welcome back to another episode of Crafting and Crime Daily, the show where I recap live trials. Yes, and there are two going on that are... So much has happened yesterday in these two trials. I was up till very, very late last night, early this morning, listening to testimony. I fell asleep listening to testimony. I was dreaming about this testimony. So we can get right into it. Yes, we can. So let's first talk about the Aaron Dean case. This is the former Fort Worth police officer, who is alleged to have murdered a Tatiana Jefferson, 26 years old, in her home playing video games. So last week on Wednesday, the prosecution, after only 3 days of testimony, rested their case. Everybody's like, what? Yeah. So yesterday, Aaron Dean took the stand. He said, I feel like everybody needs to hear from me. The jury needs to know the truth. Yes. We do. And I don't know if it was the wisest decision for him to take the stand. He did not fare well on cross-examination. He did not. Man, this guy was hammering him on cross-examination. I'm just going to pour some drills into my tray here and do a little diamond painting while I chat with you. I have been... what was I doing? Oh, I'm making a pair of fingerless gloves, and I'm working on the second glove. I still need to, I've got my crochet over there, the dog thing. I got to pick that up and start working on that again. My goodness, last night I was watching a movie. Yeah. Anyway, I digress. You know me, I'm squirreling all over the place. Squirrel. Anyway, Aaron Dean, first of all, he, educated man. He was an engineer, trained as an engineer. He worked as an engineer in a commercial refrigeration plant. And then he decided, I want to be a police officer. Yeah. So he applied to the police department, became a police officer, was only on the job for about a year. He was a rookie, same as his partner that night. Well, they really weren't partners. They both had their separate vehicles. They were both separate units. They responded to the call. He was the lead. This was his call. She backed him up. Two rookies. Probably not the best idea. Anyway, so he talked about how he had shoot, don't shoot training. He talked about all of his training, and then he started to talk about he finally gets to talk about the actual event. And he said that they got there, and he really couldn't, he could see that the front door was open, and they looked inside, and he said it looked ransacked. It looked like there had been a burglary. So he proceeded to open the gate on the side of the house, and they were checking the perimeter for any other signs of a burglary. I think at one point he found a screwdriver. So never called for backup, nothing like that. As he's going around the perimeter, he sees the silhouette of someone in the window, and he sees that they have a weapon. He says, I saw the barrel of a gun. So he takes his gun and raises it. And then at this point, he says, I'm trained to have them, tell them to put your hands up. So he, you always want to see a suspect's hands. So he was calling out to her to put her hands up when he saw the barrel of the gun, and then he shot her. never tells his partner that there was a gun. They just proceed to go in the house. Don't clear any rooms. They just walk in. They don't announce themselves. He, on cross-examination, he claimed that his partner did a quick view of the rooms to make sure that there was nobody in there. He never tells her there was a gun. That's why he shot this woman. Didn't know if it was a man or a woman that he had shot. He goes into that room. They both go in there. She takes the little boy out. He's there. They call for help. He said something about his trauma pack was lost. So, like, she loses her body cam. He loses his trauma pack. I mean, so convenient. He says that he didn't really, like, it wasn't clear to me whether he turned her over or didn't turn her over, but he looked at her, and then he didn't start CPR because he said, I was about to when the EMS came in. That just seems like a long time. It really does. Like, it would have taken them a little bit of time to get there, EMS. So what were you doing? He said he found the gun. He looked in the gun. There was a bullet in the chamber. And there was a green laser on it. I don't know what that's about. Anyway, on cross-examination, man, he was hammered by the prosecution. Really hammered. He's like, what kind of grade would you give yourself? Isn't this poor police work? And he actually admitted, poor police work. Yep, it was poor police work. Yep. Like going into the house like the way they did. Not telling his partner there was a gun. And you thought it was a burglary, but you just walk right in. You don't announce yourself, or you don't clear the rooms. You don't tell your partner there's a gun, but you thought it was a burglary. Yeah. You don't call for backup? No. You don't administer aid to the dying person on the floor. And so when he said he would give himself a B, he's like, well, what did you think you did well? And he couldn't answer that question. Could not answer that question. He's like, do you want to rethink that grade? You want to give yourself a different grade? So anyway, the judge stopped that line of questioning and they moved on. But he just was hammered to the point where he had to admit poor police work. He broke down when he watched the video, started crying. Things are not looking well for this guy. They really are not. I don't know. I think if I was a juror, I just would need to like sit and think about this. I would need time to process everything I had just heard and how I felt about what happened. Because he admitted, yes, she's in her home. She has the right to have a gun. She's protecting her home. So then, towards the end of the day, the defense put on a forensic video expert who, he wanted the jury to understand that, what a camera sees is different than what the naked eye sees. They're two different things. The naked eye can perceive much more than what a camera can perceive. And the camera is in a different position than someone's eyes. Their body cam is right here. The eyes are right here. Also, he says when you're driving and you see the side mirror and it says objects are closer than they appear, that's what's happening with the camera. The objects are actually closer than they appear on what you're seeing on that video camera. So that expert is expected to be back on the stand today to finish his testimony. Should be interesting. Yeah. I have not done a thing here. Let's just put some drills down so I can say I crafted a little bit here. So last night I did watch that George Clooney, Julia Roberts movie. It was cute. It was really cute. I don't know what the name of it is, but it was cute. An hour and a half of, comedy. They do comedy very well, those two. And they play off each other very well. The love scene, the kissing scene was hilarious. Just hilarious. So, anyway, that's my little digression for the day. All right, before we get into this next case, I'm just going to tell you, this is a jumping off point. If this is going to trigger you, this is a horrendous birthing accident that happened. So Angela Hawk is on trial. She's an unlicensed midwife in the state of Nebraska. This is where this is being litigated, and she is on trial for felony child abuse leading to death. I need to research what the penalty for that is, but can't be good. So I listened to the opening statements, and I listened to the father testify, the father of the child, the midwife. Oh, no, not the midwife. I'm sorry, the doula. The doula, the EMS workers, and I was sleeping, I think, by the time the firefighters got on the stand. So I didn't really process what they were saying. You know, it was like white noise by that time. So I'll cover that tomorrow, I promise, because I'm sure it's going to be interesting. Anyway, this midwife advertises herself as unlicensed, that she will attend your home birth should you choose that. She has a contract that people sign. This couple signed the contract. Their last name is No. Emily No is the mother. I forget the father's first name, but anyway, he's in the Air Force. He has some sort of religious position, and they wanted to have a big family. So they had hired this woman for their first child, and were attempting a home birth for the first child, and that did not go as planned. It didn't follow their birth plan. The mother, Emily, suffered from PTSD and extreme anxiety related to hospitalizations. So she did not want to have anything to do with being in a hospital. So they explored all kinds of birthing options. They went to Kansas and looked at birthing centers, because I'm in Kansas and Nebraska's like right up above us. We got Missouri over here, Nebraska, Colorado, Oklahoma. That's your geography lesson today. So they went to Kansas to explore birthing centers. They decided they didn't want to do that because they would have to drive to Kansas and stay somewhere ahead of when she went into labor, and who knows when that's going to be with your first baby. So they, they met with obstetricians, and finally they landed on this unlicensed midwife. And they knew she was unlicensed, but after speaking with her, they felt a level of trust with her that, they met with her many times. She did prenatal care. She would listen to the fetal heart tones. She would provide them advice and counseling. And then when it came time, when she went into labor, she brought her team, which included herself and a doula for the first birth. This woman, Emily, was in labor with the first child for 56 hours. And then after that, her labor just stopped progressing. And at that point, Angela, the midwife, said, "You need to go to the hospital. We're going to the hospital." They packed a bag. She went to the hospital, had a C-section. Yeah, a C-section. And the baby was born without incident. So that did not go as planned. Now, baby number 2. First of all, Emily decides she's not going to the hospital. She wants to have a home birth. So she meets with obstetricians who say, definitely not. Yes, it's possible to have a vaginal delivery after a C-section. It's called a VBAC. It's very dangerous. None of the obstetricians, they said, if you decide to go with us, we're doing a C-section. We're not doing, the chance of uterine rupture is very, very high. But they felt a level of distrust with the midwife, and the midwife felt like she could handle this. She's like, yes, it's an option. Yes, I'll do it. So she had them sign the contract. The father testified that the only difference between the services provided for baby number 2 and the services provided for baby number 1 was that Angela Hawk had said, I will need to bring my child who is nursing to this labor and delivery. And they're like, okay, fine. So she brings, when Emily goes into labor, she brings her little boy who's nursing. And they don't see anything wrong with that. They had a spare bedroom. They set up, Angela and the doula in the spare bedroom with the baby, and she would take breaks and she would go nurse the baby, and the doula and her, they switch off taking care of the baby while attending the mom. It's very strange. I think that's just my opinion. Anyway, so baby number 2, she goes into labor. They call Angela Hawk. She comes out. She says, I'll be out early in the morning. She goes into labor the night before. She said, I'll be out first thing in the morning. So she comes out, she gets there about 5 a.m. or so, and she's attending her all day long with the baby. She and the doula leave for lunch. They're gone for about an hour, and then they return, and their labor continues. And at some point that evening, maybe 8 o'clock-ish or so, Emily says, I have to go to the bathroom. So they let her go to the bathroom. And the doula goes upstairs, and she's laying down for a few minutes. She said, I'm just closing my eyes for a few minutes. I think she's in the room with the baby. And the father, nobody, the woman, Emily's in this bathroom for 10 minutes. Nobody checks on her. They just thought, oh, she's okay, So after a while, she screams, for Angela to come help. So Angela rushes into the bathroom, and the father looks in, and this baby it's this really small bathroom. As soon as you walk in, there's a toilet right there, and then you can see the tub and a sink. So she's got her elbows up on the tub, and this baby is literally delivered feet first to the waist. Let me back up for a second. I'm ahead of myself. This Angela had identified earlier that evening that this baby was breech. She said, "Oh, I see toes." That was the testimony of the doula. "Oh, I see toes." Now, you're going to ask me, what's a doula? Apparently the doula was just there to be the motherly, can I get you a cup of coffee? Let me rub your elbow. She's just there to be comforting. And then the midwife is going to deliver the baby. So this midwife, Angela, she knows now that this baby is breech. So she has what the father describes as a 2-minute conversation with him. Do you want to continue this labor, or do you want to go to the hospital? This is a breech baby. According to the father, she didn't tell him what the dangers were. She said she was trained on how to do breech. He didn't ask her if she'd ever done it before. But so he and his wife decide, no, they want to continue at home. They do not want to go to the hospital. Yes, they made that decision themselves. They were still comfortable and trusted this midwife. So after she goes to the bathroom, they rush in. We're fast forwarding now. They rush in. This baby is delivered feet first to the waist, hanging out of her, with a prolapsed cord. This is not good. This is not good. So the cord is what's giving this baby oxygen, and the head is still up inside of her. So Angela says, call 911. So the doula calls 911, but then she hands the phone to the father. I need coffee. She hands the phone to the father because she didn't know what the address was. So he gives the address, and at some point later, the EMS comes out and the paramedics come out. So now the timing of this is not real clear to me. And I'll try to sort that out as the testimony continues. But you got to figure the response time is going to be at least a few minutes. At least. So now Angela's on the floor trying to reposition her, trying to get this baby delivered, and the EMS workers get there. And the paramedic goes in ahead of the EMS worker. Someone asked Angela, how long has this been going on? She said over an hour. Now, I don't know what she meant by over an hour. Did she mean from the time she saw the toes, or from the time they entered the bathroom? I don't know what was an hour. I think probably from the time I'm hoping it's from the time she saw the toes, and not the other way around. Anyway, so the paramedics at this point and the EMS workers testify. The EMS worker testifies that what he sees now by the time he gets there is that this baby is delivered from the neck down and is hanging from her perineum. The only thing left is the head, which means this baby is not getting any oxygen. No. This baby is being hung like, whoosh, yeah. Yeah. And they cannot get this baby's head out. So Angela asks, and the paramedic immediately goes in, and they're taught this maneuver where they put their fingers in the vagina, and they put 2 fingers up and their scissor and press against the wall so that the babies can get oxygen. And apparently that was unsuccessful. And the defense, when they were examining this paramedic, said, so at this point you assumed care. You were down there. You were trying to do this. And he's like, yes. And this is an important point. So Angela says, but all these EMS workers and firefighters thought Angela was medically trained, and because she sounded like she knew what she was doing, and she had her company logo on her shirt, Birth Center, Nebraska's Birth, whatever the name of this company is. So they figured, hey, she knows what she's doing. She asked for a pair of scissors. They hand her trauma scissors, which are not surgical scissors. They're not sterile, which at this point, who cares, right? So she takes those scissors, and those scissors are designed to cut the paramedics, so they cut your clothes off and, do things like that. They don't do episiotomies with this. So an episiotomy is where they make a cut into the perineum to make a wider space for the baby's head to get out. So she takes those pair of scissors and cuts the perineum, does an episiotomy. Now, one of the EMS workers says, "You're coming to the hospital with us." She's like, "Nope, not coming to the hospital with you." No. So the EMS, who did not bring their stretcher in with them. It wasn't a stretcher. They called it some kind of a board that's bendable, that they were told, go out and get it. They go get it. And, on cross-examination, they were criticized for the amount of time that would have taken. Why you just bring it into the first place? And they're like, we had to assess the situation. And how come it took 6 of you to assess the situation, including paramedic? Couldn't one of you have carried that? It's this whole thing. So they get her on this board. They take her, because she's upstairs. They take her down the stairs head first to keep, gravity off this baby who's hanging from her perineum. Take her head first, put her into the ambulance. From the time EMS arrives till the time they say they're en route to the hospital, they tell dispatch when they're there, and then they tell dispatch when they're leaving for the hospital. It was 9 minutes. And the driver says, we didn't leave when we said we were en route, because the paramedics said, don't leave yet. Apparently they were still trying to get this baby out. Couldn't do it. So they take her to the hospital. And according to the driver, like I said, I got to get to the firefighter's testimony, but according to the drivers, when they went to unload her, apparently she had just delivered the babies. The baby's head had just been delivered prior to them pulling up to the hospital. And he said it took them about 10 minutes to get to the hospital because the route that they needed to take to get out of this neighborhood the quickest and get to the closest hospital, what they were doing construction and the roads were closed off, so they had to like do these weird maneuvers to get out of the neighborhood. So it took them 10 minutes to travel 6 miles to the hospital. So now we're talking 19 minutes at least that this baby is hanging. In any case, the baby is put on life support, and the parents are told that she will not survive. Her name was Vera. That her brain, I don't know what the injuries were, but I suspect it was a massive brain injury, and we're going to hear about that later. The parents were told that they could spend some time with her. They spent some time with her. The police wanted to interview him, the father, and he said, "Can you give me time? I want to spend this last amount of time with my child." And they're like, "No, we need to interview you." He's like, they wouldn't. So anyway, so the baby passes away. They remove the life support, and the baby passes away. So sad. So tragic. But the defense on cross-examination points out to these EMS workers, because remember, the charge is felony child abuse. Aren't you a mandatory reporter? Yes, we are mandatory reporters for child abuse. And if you had suspected there was child abuse by anybody during this call, you would have reported it. Yes, we would have reported it. Did you report anything? No, didn't report anything. Yeah. Which is an important point. Now, keep in mind, though, there's no jury in this case. There's no jury. This woman, Angela Hawk, has decided she wants the judge to hear this case. This is always a choice that you can make in any trial. You can opt out of a jury trial and just have the judge listen to all the evidence and then decide the case. We've seen that. We saw that a few months back in Missouri, and the judge actually came back with a not guilty verdict on a woman who allegedly burned her daughter to death. It was a wild case. Judge came back not guilty. So I don't know what's going to happen to her. So she's in front of a judge, and I think that's a good thing, because the jury would have been really, really swayed by emotion on this. This is just an overwhelmingly emotional case. Really, really emotional. I'm just stymied by the times here. All the timing of this whole thing, and my question is why this woman undertook this breech delivery. I think as soon as I saw those toes, I'd be like, oh, nope, we're out of here. Nope, 911, we're going to the hospital. Whether or not the parents wanted to or not, she should have done exactly what she did in the first delivery and say, we're going to the hospital. And they went to the hospital. Okay, but that didn't happen. I've got chills. Like, I have goosebumps talking about this case. Chills. It's just... Okay. Let's talk about this day in history. Let's talk about the Texas 7 prison break. Not that that's any less chilling. This happened back in 2000, the year 2000, in southern Texas, in a little town called Kennedy, Texas. The prison guards in this... engineering shop, a maintenance shop, are overcome by these 7 prisoners. They overpower the guards. They take a vehicle, they take clothing, they take guns, and they overpower the guards. And they're out of there. They leave. They go and they rob a Radio Shack. Now, these are violent criminals. I was going to read to you each one and what they've been charged with, but just some of it's just more chilling. Like child abuse that resulted in murder, rape, murder, other murders, like all this crazy stuff. Anyway, oh gosh, where was I? Okay, so yeah, all these crimes, murder, rape, just, one guy hired a hitman to murder his wife, and just really horrible crimes that these guys had committed. And they were in a maximum security prison. But they get out. They go and they rob a Radio Shack where they get police scanners and cash. Then they go to another Irving, Texas, where they rob a sporting goods store. And they take a bunch of guns and cash, more cash. So a police officer named Aubrey Hawkins responds to this call at the sporting goods store, and they proceed to gun her down and then run her over. So she's murdered. Or he. I don't know if it was he or she. Aubrey. Isn't Aubrey like a male? I don't know. Anyway, they run him over. Then they flee to Colorado, where they buy a motorhome, set themselves up in a trailer park, and tell everybody that they are Christian missionaries. Okay. And they're there for like a month. This was a 6-week manhunt that finally, this is how it got solved. They were featured on America's Most Wanted. Remember that? Yeah. America's Most Wanted. And a tip comes in after that, hey, they're in this trailer park. So they go and they capture 4 of the 7 guys. One guy commits suicide. And then the other 2, there was a standoff where, there was back and forth and calls and, hostage situation. No hostage, but, they finally, after much back and forth, they surrendered. But they were all tried and convicted for the murder of this police officer. They were all sentenced to the death penalty, the 6 out of the 7 that remained, and 3 have already been executed. One guy just waived his right to appeals. He said, nope, I'm not appealing this. Go ahead, kill me. And they had to test his mental competency to see if he was competent to make the decision to waive his appeals. And they said, yes, he was. So they carried out the death penalty. So yeah, 3 of them have already been executed, 1 by lethal injection. I don't know what about the other 2, but yeah, all because America's Most Wanted. Yep. Great show. Great show. Oh boy, I'm still chilled by this whole baby case, man. When I was an attorney, that's what I did. I did medical malpractice, and I represented hospitals and nurses, and I actually litigated several bad baby cases, and it's tragic every time. Tragic, Anyway, that's the show for today, guys. I hope you enjoyed the content. If you did, please hit the like button and consider subscribing. If you enjoyed it, share it with someone who you think might also enjoy it. Yep, just hit that share button all down there. You can also do a super chat on the regular video. Just hit the thanks button, and you can make a one-time donation that goes to support the content of the channel. That's my spiel for today. Have a great day, everybody. What's today? Tuesday. I will see you tomorrow in Crafting and Crime Daily. Bye.